Hello, and welcome to Amanda's Trying, where sometimes all we can do is try and get through the day, and that's okay. I'm Amanda, and it has been a while since I have made a video, and so I just wanted to come on to talk about some of the things that I did last year that were pretty big, and some of the feelings that I felt, specifically in regards to these internalized stigmatized beliefs that I have about myself that are quite ableist. And so we're just going to get into that and kind of challenge our ableist beliefs that we may have. I'm trying really hard, I promise. But all that I could do today was cuddle my dog and cry. The second half of last year was quite busy with a lot of good things. I went on vacation for the first time since my concussion. It was the first time that I was flying, so I was really anxious about how the air pressure changes were going to impact my headaches and my symptoms. But honestly, traveling went like really smoothly, and I was able to actually enjoy vacation and family time, and that was such a huge success for me. But on vacation, I had to come face to face with some of my stigmatized beliefs that I had about myself. So what happened was, when we were on our way there, we had an hour layover between two flights, and originally it was going to be tight, but we were going to be able to make it. But of course, our initial flight just kept on getting delayed, and we realized that we were going to be landing at the same time as our next flight was taking off. And so we were trying to figure all of this out, but we assumed the airport we were going to be going for our layover was tiny because we had never heard of it. Turns out it's a massive airport. As we're trying to figure out where we're going in the airport, we're looking at signs for the next gate, and it says 15-minute walk. We're like, what on earth? This is so bad because like our plane is literally like, the schedule says that it's taking off right now. And so I told my mom, I was like, you know that I can't move fast. I need you to run ahead of me. Like, tell them that like your daughter cannot physically hurry and rush to get there, and get them to try to hold the plane for me. And so she takes off, her little power walking, and I'm there with like all of my luggage, and like I'm already not well because traveling inevitably leads to a lot of symptoms, but then like trying to hurry and the stress of missing a flight potentially, and like really pushing my body even though I'm walking the same pace as people who aren't in a rush. But for me it was rushing. It was just a lot. And so I get to the gate and there's nobody there but my mom's standing with some staff. And so I figure, okay, we missed our flight. Now we can just like take a few breaths and figure out what we're doing now. No, what had happened was, at some point our gate had been moved, and so even though we had done the like 15-minute walk, our gate was still 5 minutes away. And so my mom had the staff call over to the gate that we actually had to go to say, hold the plane, these people are coming, they're on their way. And the staff were pushing a wheelchair towards me, and I was like, absolutely not. I would never sit in a wheelchair and get pushed around. Like, in my head, I'm thinking like, this is so embarrassing. Which is kind of a weird reaction. I had told my mom even before we got off that plane, I'm like, listen, I will do whatever except go on a wheelchair, because I don't need a wheelchair and I don't want people staring at me. And she hadn't pushed me, but now it was like, apparently when I walked to the gate to the gate that we thought we had to get to, like, you could physically see that I was not well. And so the staff were like, she needs a wheelchair. Like, you were saying that she's like chronic pain, she has these health issues, like, just get her in a wheelchair. And my mom was like, just sit in it, just go. And I'm like, this is like the one thing I didn't want to do. And so I'm sitting in the wheelchair, and my mom is pushing me, and she has all of our luggage all over her shoulders, and she like has some stuff in my lap, and she's screaming at people to get out of the way. She's like, excuse me, move please. And like, she of course is making a very big scene. She doesn't care, because she only cares about getting on the airplane. And I'm sitting there feeling like such a burden, because not only does she have to push me, but she's also carrying all of our luggage, and I don't look sick. So people are looking, and in my head I'm thinking they're trying to figure out if I'm really worthy of sitting in this wheelchair. And they're judging me, because why am I not walking with my mother? Why am I putting all of this load on her? I was not ready to confront these very strong internal beliefs that I have about myself. But traveling forced me to see that this is something that is really deeply rooted in the way that I look at myself, and it's uncomfortable and it's unhealthy. To kind of back up for a second, let's talk about what internalized stigmas are, because I'm using this language, but you guys might not be super familiar with it. So a definition that I found says that internalized stigmas are internalized beliefs of the surrounding culture that impact the way that we view ourselves. And it can result in a lot of shame. One thing is, like, people have specific beliefs about what it looks like to be disabled, what it looks like to not be able to work. And you see this all the time when people are parking in disability parking, and then someone confronts them because it looks like they don't deserve to have that spot. Or people look at people without homes and think, look at them wasting their time and energy, they're probably on drugs, they're probably lazy, and that's why they don't have a home to stay in. And so even though I very much do not ascribe to those beliefs, and when it is with other people, I can very quickly point out the stigma and say, hey, that's not a helpful way of thinking. When it's me thinking about myself, suddenly the standards are different. And I look at myself in such a harsh way. It's hard for me to identify when the things that I'm believing about myself are actually stigmas and not based on truth. So as I reflected on my very intense reaction to being in a wheelchair in the airport, I came to the conclusion that this feeling, these reactive emotions that I had, come from two main places. I have had to deal with people not believing my pain, as medical professionals, as people on the internet. I've had to really fight to be believed that the pain that I'm in is debilitating and that I need care. I think back to the neurologist appointment that I had when he told me that I had never been concussed, and that this was mainly, what did he call it? And having low mood. That was my issue, not anything physical. And that, I think, has impacted me so strongly, especially in the first 2 years after my concussion. I had so much doubt that the pain that I was feeling was valid. I felt like I was being dramatic, and I was always constantly worried that I was somehow faking it to myself, which sounds ridiculous, but I genuinely did not fully believe that I was in the amount of pain that I was feeling. I was like, other people get better from concussions, no problem. They're out for 2 weeks and then they're back to their normal life. There's almost no interruption to their life. And here I am, my first concussion. It wasn't even a really bad concussion initially, and I'm here months later, years later, still not able to function. There must be something wrong with me. There must be something wrong with my mindset or my pain tolerance or my motivation. I must just be deeply lazy and convincing myself that I'm in pain so I don't have to do anything. The other belief that I really hold tightly, it has a stranglehold on me, is this belief that I'm a burden. And I have been working really hard to try to challenge that belief, but it's something that so clearly still is very strong and in the core of the way that I view myself. And I can tell from the reaction that I had in the airport when my mom was having to push me. I have always tried really hard to be helpful. This was something that I saw as my value. I was a hard worker, I had good work ethic, I was responsible, and I helped everyone around me. I was helping other people. I did not need help myself, and that was where I had value. The concussion tore that apart. All of a sudden, I can't work, I'm not independent, I can't make my own meals, I can't help out around the house. I am completely reliant on the people around me and the systems around me to survive. I would not be alive if there were not people helping me. And I don't have anything to give back to them because all of my energy is spent just trying to stay alive and survive. For me, self-worth and independence went hand in hand. So when I lost one, that means that I lost the other. I could no longer be independent. Therefore, I as a person had no worth. So in the airport, an incident that seems unrelated in some ways, rushing to try to catch a plane on our layover, and I used a wheelchair. And all of these really strong emotions overtook me. I mean, we got on the plane, and once I sat and took a breath and the adrenaline was gone, I broke down. Why was I so embarrassed? It doesn't make sense on the surface, but when you start looking at the beliefs that you hold about yourself that are based on stigmas that you see throughout society, all of a sudden you can start connecting the dots. Something else that forced me to face these internalized stigmas, the same ones, the ones that fear that I'm faking everything, and two, that I'm a burden and a waste of space. I, in the fall, applied to get onto government assistance because it is clear I'm not in a place where I can work, and there's not a lot that is saying that I'm going to be able to work in the foreseeable future. Now this one, the stigmas are really obvious, and I can identify them and say, oh, that isn't the truth about you. This is just the way that people talk about people on disability. The idea that people on disability are faking it for a free payout, or the idea that they just don't feel like working. You hear that all the time. People are so comfortable saying that to anybody who wants to listen, and even to people who don't want to listen. And I have heard all of this and challenged it as a social worker before. So to all of a sudden be the person needing that care and support makes me again feel worthless. Because no, I was educated to help people on this program. I'm not supposed to be on this program. But that's an internalized stigma to think that any one of us could end up on disability, because majority of disabilities that people experience are disabilities that they end up getting throughout their life. Most people are not born with disabilities. People end up obtaining them because of the experiences that they have in life. And so anybody who's watching this who isn't on disability and is perfectly healthy, don't take that for granted, because one day it could be you. And so that's why it's important. I mean, this is a selfish reason to say don't have stigmas about people who are on disability, but sometimes people are just selfish. If you stigmatize people on disability, one day you're going to be stigmatizing yourself, because you may not be relying on people right now, but chances are you're not going to make it through life without having to rely on people and support systems and government programs. That's just our reality. And so for me, I never struggled with having empathy and understanding for people on disability when it was other people. But somehow when it's myself, all of these negative stigmas of people on support, government support, they come to the front and they're screaming at me, they're flashing in front of me saying, you're worthless, you're lazy, you don't deserve help, you're faking it. The hardest part about applying to be on government assistance, in my experience, is having to prove that you deserve to be on it. I had to submit this crazy amount of receipts and doctor's notes of everything that I've ever done to treat my concussion in the past 4 years. Post-concussion syndrome does not have a lot of people who understand it. The general public has no clue what post-concussion syndrome is, and there's not a lot of research that tells you here is the general identity of somebody with post-concussion syndrome. Here's what it looks like, here's how they function, and here's what they need, because it's so individual. And so the combination of it being a syndrome with so much variety in it and the general lack of knowledge means that the government, they have a harder time accepting that I need their help because of this diagnosis. And so all of a sudden, the pressure is on me to, first of all, educate them about what this syndrome is, because they might not be super familiar with it, and then to prove to them that I am somebody who has the syndrome and has symptoms that are worthy of being on this support program. The second way that it really scares me goes hand in hand with my stigmas, because I struggle sometimes to believe that I am in as much pain as I say I am. It doesn't make sense, but we've already established it's not logical, but it's still a belief system that is deeply rooted in me. If the government then says, we also don't believe you're in as much pain as you say you are, you don't need as much help as you say you do, I'm going to have to battle my own stigma on top of the disbelief that a government program is telling me, and it's going to be so devastating. That's a scary thing to think about, because I have proven to myself I don't have a lot. I don't have a very strong coping mechanism to remind myself of the truth, which is that I am in pain, that I am doing my best, and that I do deserve help and understanding. It's mentally so exhausting to fight my own brain all of the time and to try to be kind to myself, because if I'm being really honest with you guys, since I have had the concussion, like, my self-esteem is like in the garbage. But I figure if I'm dealing with this so much, that means that there's probably lots of other people who are too. And so I wanted to be honest about this so that we can start conversations, and so that other people are validated and know that they're not insane for having these feelings or having these beliefs about themselves, that somebody else has felt it too. So to try to end this on a little bit more of an encouraging note, I'm going to talk about some ways that I help myself, the ways that I challenge those stigmas when I am able to identify them. And if anybody else has some tricks, feel free to share them, because I think it's clear to everybody after this video, I am not an expert on challenging stigmas and on having a good self-image. Okay, so here are some ways that I challenge stigmas. First, I just tell somebody how I'm feeling. I express those stigmas to the people around me, whether it's my family or close friends or my therapist. I tell them, you know, I couldn't do this today and I felt really pathetic. And they're like, you're not pathetic. You're in pain. You're allowed to not be able to do something. And then it's like, when you hear the truth from another person, sometimes it just hits harder and you actually listen to it compared to if you're just trying to tell yourself that. But even if sometimes I don't believe myself, that doesn't mean I stop speaking truth to myself. These are the truths I know about myself. I am strong. I am motivated to get better. I am trying my best. I am a good person. I have value. I am loved, etc. Even if I don't believe it, I'm telling myself these things because one day I'm gonna believe it. Another thing that's kind of similar to the first one is that I just write my thoughts out. Sometimes I'm alone and I'm spiraling and there's not anybody who's available to talk to me right now. What do? I journal. For me, this is just always how my brain has worked. I'm a big journaler and I have been since I was a kid. And it's kind of the same as saying something out loud. Like, you're thinking something and it feels so real, it feels so valid. And then you either say it out loud or you write it out and you're like, that's the most insane thought I've ever had. Why am I listening to myself? It just like makes it very clear and it kind of grounds me when I'm like forced to like physically write out what my thought is. It becomes so obvious that it's really not a thought that I should be giving weight. This is a trick that I actually learned initially when I was having a lot of depressive thoughts. Of when you are able to start identifying those thoughts, you imagine that it's somebody else saying these things to you. Because just like you would never say things to other people that you say about yourself, like, I'm ugly, I'm worthless, I'm lazy, blah blah blah. Like, you would never say that to somebody else. If somebody else were to say that to you, you would be like, slow down. That's a load of crap. And so, to imagine it as like just this really annoying idiot who's telling you these things, then it's easy to like to respond and be like, no, that's so stupid. So I do that like when I have like thoughts of self-harm. I can just kind of be like, that's a ridiculous suggestion. No, I'm not listening to that. And it doesn't have to be this heavy thing that weighs over me. And I am trying my best to do that with stigmas as well, where it's like, you know, I'm in pain and somebody's like, you're so lazy, you're pathetic. Like, and then I just kind of, no, I'm not. I'm in pain. I am allowed to rest. I'm doing my best. So stop talking, you know? I don't know. It helps me. And the last thing that I find really helps is I do something that I love. Maybe I go for a walk with my dog, or I knit a little, or I read a book. Something that makes me feel productive, reminds me of who I am. Outside of my disability, I'm still a full person that has interests, that has loves, and these are things that are good in my life. And so focusing on that instead of just sitting there ruminating with really negative self-talk. So I hope that people will enjoy this video. It's really a video that I needed to do mainly for myself. And that's kind of why I started this YouTube channel anyways, right? To kind of just be able to express myself. And this has been something that I've really had to try to deal with and cope with in the last half of 2025 and coming into 2026. You guys know what I am about to do, a song recommendation, as always. So today, my song recommendation is called Le Temps fera les choses by Angèle. She's a Belgian artist and I'm obsessed with her. And so this song is, again, I feel like so many of these songs are really like, they're not complicated concepts, and there's stuff that we've heard before, like time heals all wounds, right? It's that, basically. This hope, this faith that even though we have no idea how we're going to be getting through this part of life, we can just trust if we keep going long enough, time is going to find a way to heal some of these wounds, or at least have them scab over. They might be a scar, but they're not going to be gaping and bleeding, and this is getting gross, so I'm not going to continue on with that metaphor. But, you know, this like faith that time will, like things will get better over time. And maybe it sounds ironic coming from me because I've been waiting to get better for almost 5 years and I'm still not able to function hardly, and my life is very limited. And that is true, but it has gotten easier. The challenges are still the same, but the way that I cope with it, the way that I get through things, it has gotten easier. And I hope that you will be able to say that too. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Enjoy this song by Angèle, and I will see you guys next time.
Le temps fera les choses. On verra si on ose perdre nos raisons pour retrouver la maison. Mais le temps fera les choses. Tu me l'as dit.
Le temps fera les choses. Sorry. Sorry to all the French-speaking people out there. Anyways. And all we have to do is wait for time to do its thing. No. Okay. Anyways.